Hello, and welcome to the We Get to Do This podcast. My name is Kaylee.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are your co-hosts.
In this show, we're going to dive into all things our lives, from our partnership to romance to entrepreneurship to growing our businesses together, our fitness journeys, and we're going to have a ton of different guests on that relate to what I just said in some way. We're hoping you enjoy the show, and if you do,
please feel free to follow us, leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and enjoy.
And if you don't like the show, tough. Thank you.
Thanks. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a while since I feel like we've recorded. We recorded I think a lot of people listened to our proposal episode, it sounds like, a few weeks ago. Then we had a lot of guests in between then. And we got some pretty good feedback on the proposal episode. And a lot of people told me to just keep talking about love from here on out. So that's what we're switching the pod to now. It's just love. You okay with that? And he just walked away. So I'm going to take that as a no. And apparently this is now going to be a solo Kaylee episode. Why do you hate love?
So we got some new merch.
Hey.
So new hats.
He does love me, I promise.
Very nice BOGO hat.
Wow.
Look, I had to try to add a little comedy to the show. I thought it'd be funny for the people listening. So we got those BOGO hats. Kaylee, do you want to show the red shirt? This is the gray shirt. If you want to wreck the pod, it says we get to do this across the front and then over endurance in the back. And Kaylee's going to be an oak.
So it's my company now.
That's also her company. So you support both of us. Because I don't know if you heard, but we're engaged and in love. So we got gray and then we got the red.
Still in love, actually. And it's a nice, lightweight cotton material. So you can still, I'm planning on lifting and stuff in these.
And then what I'm probably most excited about are the new sweatshirts.
Dun da da.
Under Armour. Nice lightweight material with the oak icon on the front. And then the sweatshirt has oak endurance running down the sleeve. Kaylee's showing it off on her screen as well. She got the blue one, I've got the gray one going. Fits true to size. You know, this is an XL, so I'll go ahead and throw this on for everyone that
hoodie.
wants to see, obviously. True to size, XL.
Wow.
And then there's these little cool knobs, which I'm pretty sure Under Armour puts on things or companies do just so they can charge more, if I had to guess, because I'm not really sure what it does.
It scrunches up the hoodie, the hood.
No, I'm saying besides just having 2 strings, it just looks sick. And they added plastic, let me tell you. Worth an extra $10. Why I caved and bought it. So, hats are $35. The t-shirts are, how much have they been?
20.
20, and the sweatshirts are 65. So if you want any, hit us up. You'd be supporting a small business, and yeah.
And you look really cool.
And you look sick.
You look like us. And who wouldn't want to do that? Guaranteed, if you wear the sweatshirts, you will find your love.
Because, yeah, we're in love. So,
in case you haven't heard.
Yes, you haven't heard. So those are our announcements. We've got Grandma's next weekend. Kaylee's going to try to run 120 in the half.
Nope. That's not the goal.
What's the goal for you?
Goal is to go under an hour and 40 minutes. Last year I did 1:40:58. And this year I think it'd be really cool to go under 1:40.
Wow.
But before I get into my thing, what's your goal?
Oh, I don't chase the times.
Oh, it's a hobby, right?
Actually, though, so here's the thing. This week, I've been messing with Kaylee a lot because...
What else is new?
there is a 5K, a trail 5K. So grandma's it's Tuesday. Grandma's is next Saturday, which is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days away. There's a trail 5K tomorrow, Wednesday night, which is 10 days away. And I was like, hey, we should do this 5K. I have a couple of clients, 3 clients doing it. It'd be kind of fun. We're going to go race. And it's on trails. And Kaylee, I thought, loved trails. And she looks at me, she goes, no, just no, no explanation, nothing. I went, oh, no, okay. So I said, why not? And she goes, well, I don't really want to run on trails before I go out for a half marathon road PR. And I was like, wow, you've changed.
I'm trying to get better at saying no, so there's that to begin with. And
But when we first met, you were all about, you were like anti time. And I was all about time. And now you're like more like swaps, basically. I wouldn't say we're anti though. The other thing, I shouldn't say it like that. But I just thought it was funny. So I was like, wait a minute, I'm running a trail 5K, and Keely's turning down a trail race in favor of
okay,
road,
well,
road.
yes, and
4 times.
I know this,
I'm so proud.
it doesn't make sense either, but because I pay for a lot of road races, but I don't.
Dude, it's $30, and it's
Like $40, and I can
No.
go.
Where's
I
my
can
phone?
go.
No, it is not.
By the time you use all the processing fees,
Let's see
it's
what
at
got
least-
taken out of my credit card.
at least 35. And last time I checked, I can just go run on any trail
here
for
we go.
free.
$33.60.
Yep, not
You
30.
round that down. You round
Not
down for
30.
that.
You definitely round up to 35. Yeah.
Either way, $35. You know what else you can get for $35? This hat right here.
See, and that's why I didn't buy the race, because I had to buy a hat from you.
Oh, whatever.
You're
She
right.
doesn't buy it. She does not buy the merch. We are a
steal.
combined household.
I steal, actually.
Please don't. I do love her. This is too much making me look like I don't actually love you today.
No, you do love me. He even helped me build a shelf on Sunday for my treatment room. Looks really good.
I was in my masculine.
Yeah, it was hot. I just sat and watched and cleaned, actually.
Yeah.
Well, you did that.
Yeah. So yeah, anyways, we're just, I don't know, we're in a, I don't actually care if she doesn't want to run like 5K.
Yes, you do. You bring it up every day, multiple
I mean,
times
in
a
the
day.
sense of like, if you're focused on the half goal, I totally respect that. I have no problem. Yeah, why would you run a hard 5K 10 days out? That's fair. I don't care.
So instead, I'm
I just,
running.
give me a crap.
Instead, I'm running a hard mile tonight.
Yeah, I mean, how does that add up?
So wish me luck. Actually, by the time this comes out, my mile will be done. And I have not raced a mile since high school, so I'm I'm very intimidated. But my only goal is to beat my friend Al during this, so I'm feeling it.
That's my only goal for the 5K tomorrow is to beat Jake.
Yeah.
But actually for the half, I'm going to try to average 6:30 pace. That's my goal. I don't even know what time that is. I don't know.
And mine is 7:30 pace, so well, so yours will be about 13 minutes slower, so about 127-ish, around there. So I think my 7:30 pace is about a 140-ish half. And if you're doing a minute faster, I think that should be about
6:30 pace is 125:13.
Oh.
Wow.
Wait, is 7:30
sick?
7:30 pace actually might be 138 now that I'm thinking about it.
Let's find out. For those
I think
wondering,
it's 138.
7:30 pace to half marathon. It's that 0.1 at the end. It's a
I'll get
lot
you.
more than you realize. 138.
This is also very funny because old Kaylee, speaking of this, like hated talking about times like this. Like I hated being that person, and now here I am.
It's kind of fun. I mean,
I wanted to go to trails because like before trail races, everyone's like eating pizza and drinking beer and just like talking about like their nutrition and the fuel. And then before road marathons, it's like everyone's talking about like what time do you want to do? How at what miles are you going to take your Morton gels? And they're just very different vibes.
Yeah.
And it's fun, like, now being part of both of them. Like, they each have their place.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
But I was feeling very confident about getting under 140. Training this winter was going great. Got some great base miles in. Training this spring was going great. Like, I was exceeding all of like my speed workouts, feeling really good. And we touched on this a few weeks ago already, but then kind of had a hiccup at the like end of April, beginning of May. And then things started to kind of fall off the track. And during like when we get, an injury or a setback, it's like crazy how the mind just like starts to spiral. And when things aren't just going like smooth sailing, how then all of a sudden it's like, I feel like a failure and I am not gonna be able to hit my PR. And like it's easy when things are going well, right? Like we just keep, knocking away at our speed workouts, our long runs, everything feels good. And then as soon as something happens and it's like, oh shoot, like now what? And that's kind of what we want to talk about today is, like as we've talked about before a lot on here, like injuries are inevitable. None of us are, you know, superhuman. Like we're all just normal people doing our thing, and running is very hard on the body. And at some point, you most likely something will come up. If it's a sickness, if it's a broken bone, if it's, Achilles issues, foot issues, like something's going to happen. And both of us treat runners all the time with injuries. And we just want to talk about different tools that we've personally used and then tools that we use for our athletes so that when something does happen, like I'm not trying to put this out into the universe and manifest it, but if and when this does happen, we want to give you all some tools to be prepared for that time so that this isn't like the end of the world. Because as dramatic as that sounds, like that is how it feels sometimes. And especially for us, since our lives pretty much revolve around running with our jobs, and then it's also our hobby, it can be extra challenging for us. And we're not even pro runners. Like we're just speaking as just like hobby joggers.
Yeah, I think understanding first that if you're if you're pushing yourself as an athlete, hobby jogger, recreational, whoever you are, if you're pushing yourself, I think injury mitigation is a better way to like kind of phrase it because you will inevitably something will eventually happen. I think and you're pretty much guaranteed something to happen eventually. There are steps we can take to like reduce the risk of an injury, or there are steps that we take ahead of time so that if you do get injured, you can come back from it quicker, right? Things like that.
And we talked about all of those in episode 39 about not hitting roadblocks in your training. If you want to go back and listen to that.
That's when we talked about with like Cairo and PT and stuff.
Those were the things about like making sure you have enough sleep, make sure you're strength training, eating well.
All right, so yeah, listen to that episode. But coming off of that, then is how do you know when it actually is an injury versus not? I think that's probably like step one. That's probably the hardest thing to figure out and solve, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like in the running world, and I mean, in all running, but especially like even in the ultra world, we're so much about mindset and, like getting in the pain cave. And yes, it's going to be hard and you're going to be in pain and things are going to hurt. And how do you push through that? And while there's definitely a time and a place for that, there's also the other side of like, when should I not be pushing through this pain? Like, when is there actually an issue that's going to end up setting me back more than just like, I'm going to push through, I don't want to get up for my workout this morning, so I'm going to push through. Like, there's a difference between this, or, I'm sore from my workout on Monday versus like something is injured and I need to take a step back and find out what's going on and look at my team and the tools that I have to make sure that I'm not digging myself into a further hole. What are you looking up?
I'm getting feedback from ChatGPT and seeing what it says in terms of eyeing if we're injured or not, or if
Okay.
it's general soreness before I go on and say the next thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I do feel like that's extremely hard to be able to differentiate. And now that, I mean, we've both had, multiple injuries in our lives, and it is hard to be able to tell, like, okay, is this soreness? And like, what are some things that, like, do you have any like general
Yeah, there's too much ChatGPT just spit too much at me,
tips?
so I'm just gonna say what I usually would say. Okay, so if we're looking at like injury versus soreness, this is kind of my general rule of thumb, and we've probably heard a lot of this before. Number one, for the actual run, think about, is it getting worse throughout the run? Does it kind of go away as you warm up throughout the run? Does it feel achy? Does it feel dull? Does it feel sharp? Does it feel fiery? Things like that. If it is kind of going away, and if it's more of like an ache or a dull thing and it's more like on a muscle, that's probably a soreness related thing, probably. If it's fiery, nervy, sharp, if it is getting worse while you run, things like that. If it kind of stays the same during the run, we talk about pain scale a lot, 1 to 10. So if it's like a constant 3 out of 10, if you can run on it and it doesn't change your gait, those are the types of things to think about. Uh, After the run, what does it feel like? Does it get super tight and stiff? That's not a great sign. If it's like a soreness thing, it will probably feel a little better once you move. Does it swell? That's a big thing. That's a big thing. And you would be surprised at the amount of people, including myself, that after a run, if something is injured and it starts swelling up, you're like, nah, I guess okay. I'll try again tomorrow. Just get some ice on it, right? That type of thing. You know, um, you need to look out for those as the biggest things. There's one thing that ChatGPT did say that I wanted to bring up, and does it affect your ability to walk, run, or sleep? That's not a big one. If it does, that's probably also an injury of some sort. And I think some of that also is like time and learning your body and what feels like an injury versus what doesn't. I also feel like I feel like you know too.
Yeah.
Like I feel like deep down, every time something is injured on me, I'm like, yeah, I think this doesn't feel like normal soreness. So, being honest with yourself on that. And I always tell people 3 days. If it's like been 3 days and it hasn't changed at all, or is it getting worse? Again, you'd think, but this happens all the time. If after 3 days it's gotten worse, do not keep running on it. And please do not keep upping like mileage or intensity,
Mhm.
right? So those types of things to keep in mind. But I have people who, especially coming back from injury, it's so nerve wracking because if you take off 2 months or something, and you're coming back from injury, and depending on what your strength background is, and now you start strength training and running, you're going to be very sore. You just took 2 months off. So that's where that 3 day rule comes into play a lot. Like if you do something and then 3 days later, or like every day it gets a little better, that's how I kind of test like, okay, this is more soreness than anything else, because I'll have clients that are like, all right, I ran yesterday and we did strength, whatever, and like today actually my hamstring feels worse than it did yesterday. And it's kind of like, okay, is that soreness or is that an injury, right? Popping back up. So then I'll ask, okay, let's check in tomorrow. How are things feeling? Right. So there's a bunch of forward involved in that. You hopefully something sticks there.
But yeah, I think if the pain persists and it continues to be on like an upwards trajectory in terms of like it's getting worse, like that's a pretty good sign.
Right.
Whereas if you feel it, but it's like getting better every day, you're probably good. What were you gonna say?
If it's localized too, that's another thing. If it's like shin splints are a good example of this. Some people will be like, I can feel my actual like the tibia, the actual bone in one spot. I can touch with one finger. That's really painful right there. Like it's a good example of like a bit like a stress fracture. Versus if you feel it throughout the whole shin, like it might be muscular then. So
Well, and what's this stat? I know you've used this about like a lot of us have had prior injuries, and then those are the things that tend to keep coming up. Like, isn't it like 80 or you're 80 or 90% more likely to re-injure?
I don't know what the
It's
percentage
something like
is.
that. But like,
I know that the number one cause of injury is re-injury.
yeah.
And I know that based on our gait, you should get a gait analysis done if you haven't yet, because this is a good way to determine these things. Based on our gait, especially as you're older too, and more, after like, I don't know, puberty ends, after 23, 24, 25, whatever, like your gait doesn't change as frequently. It can though if you have like a child, a good example, like your gait's going to be different coming back from that. Um, but knowing your common movement patterns when you're running or walking is important, because usually it's going to lead to a specific injury for you. Like we all have, uh, the person who's like, I get shin splints. That's like my thing. Or I always have calf issues, or I always have hamstring issues. It's always in my right hip flexor, right? So you can kind of pinpoint and understand why that is.
Yeah, and like, so for me, when this, like, my right leg popped up again, beginning of May, end of April, like, I had already injured that a year and a half ago when I did rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. And at first, like, it started out as like a calf thing, and then it started turning into kind of like what I had before, with like being on like the outside of my knee. And I feel like that's very common for, like we're saying, like for that stuff to keep popping up. And so then I want to talk about like when this does happen. And so now you've determined, okay, it's not getting better. It's potentially progressively getting worse. And like now I feel like I need to do something or it's gonna like keep getting injured. This is what happened to me where it was like, yeah, I know that something's wrong. And like for me, I typically will see a physical therapist, I'll see a chiropractor and an acupuncturist. And typically massage is thrown in there too. Those are kind of like my three big like go-tos, and you, like with strength training, um, are my big like my team that I have. And I also like write down things like so I was able to pick out from when I had this like a year and a half ago too and be like, okay, these are some of the things that I was doing with like PT, and these are things that I can now repeat again. Um, but I do feel like it's important to have a team because all of these people have given me like insight into what's going on and have different like viewpoints to it. And I
Yeah, we're
mean,
very lucky in that sense.
yeah, we're extremely lucky. But like for acupuncture, I mean, it's great for injury, but then I always tell people too, like it's great for your nervous system because when we do get injured, you do have those spiraling thoughts of, I was like, okay, now it's going to happen with spring superior. Now it's going to happen with grandma's half. And you start, getting into your mind about like, you know, how long is this going to last? And it makes a lot of us very anxious. So with acupuncture, it's taking you out of like that fight or flight and the sympathetic nervous system and bringing you back into like rest and digest or the parasympathetic. Because if you're extremely anxious about what's going on, it's going to be very hard to heal. And so you have not only just the muscular and like physical side of it, but you're also like helping your nervous system. And then chiropractors are incredible for getting things back into alignment. Both of us see a chiropractor on a regular basis, and they can look at your hips, your like pelvic alignment, your back, your neck, um, ankles, ribs. Like there's a huge benefit to that too. And then physical therapists um, are very good at like also like looking like at the specific injury and then also figuring out like what in the body is off and what's not in alignment and then giving you like specific exercises to focus on.
Muscular. I think about it as muscular a lot of times.
Yeah, and they can also help with the nervous system too and getting
100%.
things to
Accompany
relax.
will help with the nervous system too a lot. Malia
Yeah.
always does nervous system reset stuff for us both.
Yeah. So if you have any questions about like who we go to or any recommendations, like I feel like we've created a pretty good team for ourselves of people that help things to keep trucking along. And yeah, and I mean the best way, like both of us are very big on like preventing all this stuff from happening in the first place. But if and when this does happen, like these are some of the tools that we use. And then I've always found that strength training like helps so much. Like I typically feel a lot better after I strength train, depending on what my injury is. But typically that's not the time to like stop strength training. Would you agree? Like you definitely need to modify sometimes. Like there were a lot of like single leg jumps and stuff that were not feeling good. So then I just didn't do those for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends. The unfortunate answer is a lot of it depends in that some of this takes experience. Um, and we're very blessed that we like I've had uh, so many running injuries, and so I'd be like, I've had shin splints, I had T-band, I've had blown discs, I've had glute issues, I've had calf issues, I've had sprained ankle. It's like my hip flexor gets effed up pretty routinely. It feels like, but like you learn from all of them, and you know who to go to for all of them too. And I think that what's nice is that we have each other, but we have other people that we can ask them, like, what do you think? Who should I see for this? Right. So I'd say lean on community. Ask in Facebook groups, ask us. Uh, I think what's cool about us is not any of us are afraid to refer out. So I have plenty of times when I'm like, yeah, I'm going to refer you to this person. There are times too where like I'm not afraid to say that if someone comes to me with shin splints, specifically is a good example. Like I'm pretty confident in my ability to help someone with shin splints, even though I'm not a physical therapist, right? But like there are other things that I'm like, yeah, I'm not touching this. So, but when you get injured, the kind of line of events I follow is first of all, can you run through it, right? That's what everyone wants to know. Can I run through it? So, like, scale of 1 to 10, if it's above 3, which for an endurance athlete, you should probably say it's above 5 because I've learned people's scales are not the same as normal. Someone might be like, "This is 7 out of 10," and I'm like, "What's a 10?" Because to me, like 7 out of 10 is pretty painful. But you just ran 10 miles and it's 7 out of 10. You know what I mean? So, I'd say if it's above 5 out of 10, you should consider not running and just talking to someone. But if you're running through it and you're like, okay, it's not getting any better, then it might be time to go see PT, Cairo, whomever, right? Or and you might want to just anyways take 3 days off. It's amazing if you just take 3 days off, and that's kind of like the general, I don't know, number that Google and whomever will give you. I don't have a great answer. 72 hours. Usually it's 48, and then I'm having a lot of ADHD moments during this pod. But usually, if you take 3 days off and it still hasn't changed, that's the key. Like if it hasn't changed at all, this is now the time when you're like, and it's hard. This is the hindsight moment, but you have to stop because people a lot of times now will be like, all right, I'm just pissed off, and then they go rage run, and they do that for a few days, and now you're effed up. And then that's when people like will come to us and will be like, Now we're the practitioner that's like, you're going to need to take 2 weeks off, if not more. Right. So it's like, that's usually a good rule to follow. I would say that 3 day mark. If you take 3 days off and it like does get better, then maybe it is a rest thing. Or in my mind, it's like, okay, there might be more you need to do. Again, that's where it just like depends, and seeing a practitioner so they can tell you expect like specifically what to do. Because on the one hand, you have the injuries that happen that need rest, right? We see this all the time. Someone does a marathon and then they run Tuesday, and then they run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they're like, my ankle hurts. Yeah, yeah, I bet it does, right? Or you have the person who is training for a marathon and something pops up, and it's not really related to like recovery necessarily. It could be under recovery is a big thing, but and then it might be something that like actually, you know, not running isn't necessarily going to like make this better. Or there's also injuries that when you let your body tighten up, it can actually get worse. So like that's things to consider. Like and remember, it might actually be a matter of you need to start strength training something or working something specifically. So you kind of need to figure those. You got to figure that out. I think that's the hard thing with injuries, right? So
Well, and so we went to the Boundary Waters a couple weeks ago, and so I was forced not to run for 4 days. And I had already been, you know, done the PT, done strength training, chiro, but I was still having like that persistent pain, like with my first couple steps of running every run. And then we got back from the Boundary Waters after not running for 4 days and haven't, knock on wood, had that pain since. But then just because I was out of pain at that time, then it was a reminder of, okay, like I was at this point in my training a couple weeks ago, and this does not now mean that I can just immediately jump back into that. And so now
mhm.
Jacob's had me like at low mileage for the last couple of weeks since we got back from the Boundary Waters, because now grandma's half is 11 days away, and still you're still kind of like typically like walking on ice like a little bit and kind of like finding that balance between like, okay, now I need to like I do need to run and I need to get some speed back, but also I'm not at where I once was, and that's okay, and kind of accepting that. And because if I'd immediately jumped back in, that's just asking for something to happen and asking for a re-injury.
Yeah, that's very true.
So you need to train where you're at. And we've talked a lot about like the similarities between like running and life. And I think it's important to remember like when you do get injured and like with running, like not to like diminish injuries, but there are so many things in life that are going to be a lot harder than your injuries. And when you do get injured, like it's such a good way to then kind of prepare yourself for the hard things in life and to remember like this is temporary, just like a lot of things in life are temporary. And we are doing this for fun and enjoyment. And this is a hobby. And this is not meant to be some like super stressful thing. A lot of us do it to relieve stress and for our mental health. And just remembering like putting things into perspective. And I know it's a lot easier said than done, especially when you're not currently injured. Because I know when you are like in the depths of it, it is very hard. And we get so many people that are like, I have to run for my mental health. Like, this is how I basically stay sane. And remembering that this is not the end all be all. And sometimes injuries are great times to get other hobbies and spend time with friends and family. And yeah, just remembering like this is for fun and it's temporary.
Yeah, with that though, I would also say like an injury is almost like grief, which is an extremely privileged thing to say. Let's say, like when you get injured, depending on what it is, I guess, but you're gonna likely go through the 5 stages. And let's see, I forget what they all are. It's
Like
like the first one's
anger.
denial, and then you bargain, and then you accept it.
Yeah.
5 stages of grief. 5 stages of grief. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Yeah. And I do feel like injuries follow this a lot, which is why I think it's important to bring up because the non-runner might be like, oh, just get over it, But I do think this is true. Like, as someone who is running a lot, it's a big part of your identity. So, like you're missing out on group runs, you're missing out on maybe um, other social stuff, but like your
Time with your partner. Like I
time with
hear
your
that
partner.
about a
Yeah.
lot, like
Yeah.
people who run together. I just was talking to a patient last week and she's like, I didn't realize how much time, like quality time I spent with my partner from running and
Yeah.
now they don't have that.
Right. You
And
should bike
that's
if you're that person.
yeah, if you can and you're
If you
not in a
can.
boot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Momentum. You're grieving momentum. That's a big one. Like you might be in like 10 weeks into a marathon build. You might have finally been feeling good, right? I don't know. I have a client who was training a ton and doing like, a 10-mile run in the middle of the week and a 20-mile run on the weekend. And he was pretty into it for a while and then he got hurt. It's a big momentum shift, now, so you're grieving a lot of different things. So I think that you need to like listen to that and go through that, depending on how long the injury is. Even if it's just a couple weeks, that feels so long. I think that's what people don't understand is like taking 2 weeks out and then you come back and now you feel out of shape compared to where you were. So if your certain friend group that you run with is running X pace for all their runs, like 2 weeks off, you end up around with them. Depending, like there's just things like that you got to think about and consider. So it's like I think that's important to remember too. And like the pressure we put on ourselves, everyone does it. Everyone does it. I don't care if you're a professional athlete, a run influencer. Yeah, a professional athlete is getting paid 6 figures to run. Yeah, they may have a little more pressure, sure. But you still like recreational runners, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves too. We make goals, we say them out loud. You may tell people that, my first marathon, I remember telling people I was going to run a marathon. People were like, no, you're not. Right? So now it's like, I don't want, I get hurt and I don't want them to think I can't do it. There's pressures like that, good or bad, right? So, there's things like that I think that you have to consider and just really understand when you're going through those grieving processes. Uh, but the acceptance stage, which you already kind of touched on, is kind of that like knowing, okay, we're in this for the long haul. There is usually silver linings behind things that are going on, and an injury can usually bring about a silver lining. Like runners, a lot of times can become pretty imbalanced, I would say, and I think injuries can sometimes bring them back to equilibrium. And it could be years of imbalance, adrenal fatigue, not getting enough sleep, I've done this, get up at 4 every day, run, right? Your body can be so unbalanced, like your body might just finally be breaking and being like, you need to chill. So I would think about those and read into them, right? But you got to go through those stages of grief first, too. That's the acceptance stage. So that takes a little bit of time to get to. So, yeah, and remember too, like it's kind of going backwards now, but 3 days off is a lot better than 2 months off. And I think that that's the big thing to remember for us. And, even in this build I'm in right now, I'm just running, I don't know. But, I've had 2 moments where my right hip has kind of like flared up a little bit, similar to last year. And the first time I was like, I was on a plane twice in the past 5 days, around like 40 miles on that Arizona trip. But I was like, Jacob, you're just gonna take 2 days off. I only took 2, and I came back fine. Right. The second time was actually like last week, and I knew I was like, I know exactly the chiro adjustment I needed, and I went and I booked. I saw a chiro and got that adjusted right away. Right. So it's like just building that awareness and understanding and whatnot. But yeah, grieve that shit. Grieve it.
Yeah, and with the grief too, it's like I think of running as a practice. Medicine's a practice, running is a practice. And again, that's like what I was trying to say about like the relatability to life. And these are all like real things that we're going to experience, not just in running, but in real life too. And not that I want you to have to go through these things, but it is good to get that perspective and awareness in something that's a little safer, like
Yeah.
running too, you know?
Yeah, and I think that it's amazing the nervous system like reset you get from simply just being like, you know what, I'm injured, I'm done, I'm just throwing the towel for a little bit.
Instead of
You can
fighting
like
it.
immediately feel your body just, you know. I had Malia once tell me that it's impossible to heal your body when you're in fight or flight. So get some acupuncture.
Hi,
Get some acupuncture.
take a bath, get a
Drop some
massage.
melatonin. Yeah, do those things because it's like I don't think we're really arguing that those are beneficial anymore in today's day, but maybe some people still are. I don't know. But those things are still good for you. And if you're running a ton, like, let's be honest, you probably need it. So,
Yeah,
um,
even if you're not injured.
yeah,
Those
even
are
if you're
good
not
things to
injured.
keep up on
Right.
so that you don't get injured.
Yeah. And then when you do come back, re-injury is the number one reason for injury. And people love to do this. This is like this is coming back from a race too, like a marathon plus half marathon, whatever it is. When you do those races, you are injuring your body. Think about it that way. You're injuring your body. When you do a marathon, right? At marathon pace, you go all out, whatever that is, right? You're injuring your body. Same with an ultra. So thinking that you can just come back and do the same amount you were doing, we gotta stop that as a running society. It's not good for you at all. But the return, I've said this so many times, the return, the start of a build, it's not where you ended the last build. It is where you started the last build. You can like I wouldn't even start higher than that. I start every build like the same, right? You might progress faster as you get more years under your belt. You might be able to add more or maybe get to a higher peak, things like that. But even like you're starting where you started the last one, at least for that first week.
I also just want to add, like, when in doubt, like if you're not sure if you're injured or not, and you have, the financial and time capability, like going to see somebody for help, PT, chiro, acu, you're never going to come out like wishing you hadn't gone. Like you're always going to get some kind of benefit. So, and sooner that you do go see somebody, the stronger the chance that it's not going to turn into like a super like acute chronic thing. I always tell people like if you come and see me after, you've had this pain for weeks, for months, for years, it's going to take a lot longer to get better. And you'll need to come in more frequently and it will end up costing more in the long run and take up a lot more of your time. Whereas, as soon as you start to feel something come up, like if you have the ability, come in sooner rather than later because you'll turn around things so much faster typically. It's where you continue running on the injury that the problems will happen.
Hopefully
Yeah,
that helps.
hopefully it helps.
I was extremely scatterbrained and ADHD today, so
We also haven't recorded in a while, but
and I've been drinking cold brew. And I took a nap and woke up like 15 minutes before this.
yeah, that's a strong, strong cold brew. It's a toddy cold brew for anyone wondering. Homemade. Um, but yeah, that's kind of our injury thing. Injuries suck. They're hard, but you will get through them and lean on your community. And because most everyone has gone through something like this. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
not to always plug my stuff, but the We Get to Do This docu series, I think, is a very good series to watch for this and watch me navigate. Last year, when beginning of the year, I'm like, I'm going to break through it. I'm going to pay $10,000 for a film crew all year. I'm going to have my brother come with and pay for all his trips. He can film me. I think I spent a lot of money on that. I put that out into the world, a lot of pressure. And then I got injured in like March. It was great. And I was injured the whole year. So that sucked. So yeah, go watch that if you want, like, to kind of see how I dealt with that in real time because I almost stopped that documentary. I like that was last year sucked
Yeah, it makes you question
in the running
everything.
world. In the running world, It was great in other ways.
We can plug it. We'll put the link into this episode so you can watch too if you haven't watched yet. They're really good, even without the injury stuff. So I make a lot of appearances too. So
Yeah, and she's really pretty.
thanks, Jacob. What's your we get to do this moment? Do, 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 do.
Uh, um, what's my we get to do this moment? I I feel this is a tough question right now. Um, I'm drawing a blank. I don't have one, I guess. It's
Not,
over. It's over. I failed.
not grateful for anything.
I'm not happy. You go first.
I'm trying to decide which one I want to do, but I'll probably say the other night we had my sister and your brother over and for game night, and then we made some pizzas. And Jacob's youngest brother is moving to Japan as we speak. He's on a plane
Right now, it's tough.
across the
Tough
ocean.
moment for us. The fam. We're gonna miss him.
Yeah, and I mean, I've only known him for a couple years now, but family is very big to both of us. And it was just very cool. Like, both of our families get along incredibly well. And it was just cool having like both of our siblings together. And like my sister went to the U of M, your brother went to the U, you went to the U. I'm kind of the only one who didn't, but um, we just all have
Got you, mom.
go ghosts. Um, but yeah, it's just fun like being able to hang out with everyone and like having close families. Like I just feel really lucky. And we're gonna miss him a lot. And then my sister might be moving too. It was just one of those like we need to enjoy this while we can because he's never gonna be in our apartment again, probably. And it's like you just have to remember those moments and really appreciate them for what they are.
Those are good. That's a good one. That's a good one. So, all right, I got mine. So I went for a run on Sunday, and it was 14 miles. And there was a workout portion of the run that isn't super important, but I averaged roughly 7:30 pace for the entire run. And the workout portion is kind of important. It was a 10-mile workout, and on the 10th mile, I didn't hit my split. So I get done with the run, and I'm like trotting in, really roached, very roached. And I'm like beating myself up. I'm like, wow, that sucks. I didn't hit my split. I'm a failure. All this classic stuff that like, look, if you say you don't talk to yourself while running like that, sometimes you're probably lying because we all do, I think, you know. But I'm like, well, you're a failure, blah blah blah. Then I go on Strava and I see last year to the date, I ran a 14-mile run, and it was a progression run in which I was supposed to start above 8 pace. Then I was supposed to run 5 miles above 8, 5 miles at 7:45, and end the last four at 7:30 to 7:20 if I could. And that was so hard last year, like so hard. And I remember trying to finish that 7:30 mile, and I like couldn't even hold 7:30s last year. And the average pace for that whole round was like an 8:05 or whatever. And it put it into perspective that, and then also listening to Sally McRae's latest podcast, put it in perspective of like how lucky we are to even worry about that type of shit. But also like remembering last year how I was injured that whole year and how I would have killed to be able to run, 14 miles like I did this year at the pace I did, right? So my we get to do this moment is kind of two things. One, it's remembering how lucky we are to even be worrying about like, oh, I didn't hit my last mile split. Boo hoo. I don't say that like I don't say that to like be mean or like say that your goals don't matter. I more so say that like that's a pretty privileged thing to like have to get to worry about, right? And then the other thing too is last year I was to be able to just run 14 miles and not feel my thigh, So Why we get to do this moment is remembering that we get to do this. And I need to get off the mic because I just won't stop talking. So, peace out, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate you all.
Wow, Kaylee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
We would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this.